Hello everyone! Welcome back to another episode of Deciphering Phyrexian, the show whose premise is so bizarre you would think it's satire. Over the years, we have seen many different examples of Phyrexian. And what I did is that I went through every single one of them. I looked at the words they used, I looked at their possible translations, and I compiled them all in a dictionary, the Phyrexian dictionary. In this video, I'm going to read to you every single Phyrexian word ever, and I'm gonna tell you what they mean, what we know about them, and what we suspect about them. And if that seems interesting, you are a beautiful kind of nerd, and I love you. Let's begin. The Phyrexian Dictionary by Fernando Franco Felix. Hey, that's me. First edition. We begin with an explanation of the Phyrexian writing system. Most of the sounds of these symbols were deduced because we know how to write the names of the praetors and Jacmod. Well, we know how those names are supposed to sound, and we know how they are written. And so from that, we were able to deduce the sounds of many of these letters. From there, when I realized that the diacritics had some specific meanings, for example, they were pointing to the front or the back of the mouth, voicing, on voicing, that sort of stuff. When I was able to apply that logic, the sound of many other symbols became apparent. The sound of some of these symbols is still a mystery, or we are not sure they could sound in some other way. But I think that we are 90% sure in this chart. We also have the vowels. I think the only one we have never seen used is the schwa, but I suspect it must be a schwa. And yeah, so let's continue. Then we have the section about tense markers. And the first one is the present tense marker. Present tense marker. Yeah. Anyway, and one example of this is Eleshnorn Grand Cenobite. But in reality, this is probably the most common Phyrexian word. I think, I didn't count them, but I think we have more examples of this tense marker than any other word in Phyrexian. And of course, it always appears with sentences that are in present tense. And we think it is pronounced something like xe. Maybe the consonant might be a little bit up to question, but the vowel e, I think, is pretty solid. The second one is the deontic permissive, and I know deontic permissive, it sounds very weird, but basically what it means is it is a tense in which you are saying what is allowed. You are telling someone what is allowed to do. And so it makes sense that here in Jacmod's Testament, they use it when they're talking about you may play. And so, yeah, it is a very uncommon tense mark, a very uncommon tense in human languages, but it certainly exists. Some human languages use the deontic permissive, and so it's interesting that we are seeing it here in Phyrexian. Another thing to note is that the vowel e is the same as in the present tense marker, but the consonant is different. Here is a stop at the front, so probably like a T or a T. I know that those sound very similar to you, but all my Hindu-speaking audience hopefully heard the difference between the aspirated and unaspirated consonants. T, T. Anyway, the next one is the conditional, as we see also in Jacmod's Testament when it says if a card would be put like in your graveyard or somewhere else, exile it instead, and it is pronounced something as bakilix or something like that. And spoiler alert, there are many things I'm translating as conditional here. Mostly because what happens with the conditional is that there are many different kinds of conditionals. A conditional tense is when you are talking about, well, basically in English is the if. But when you think about it, there are many different kinds of conditionals, like if, when, or something like if that happens, then this happens, or if that would happen, if that happened in the past, if that is happening now. All of these different kinds of conditionals. English expresses them by using several phrases and tenses, like if that were the case, or if that is the case, that these sort of constructions. Well, it seems that Phyrexian has different tense markers for all of these things. And we see most of these conditional tense markers just once or twice. And that makes it really hard to pin down exactly what they are being used for, and how they are different to other conditionals. Also, something that makes them very complex is that there are like simple tense markers that are just a consonant and a vowel, but many of them are complex, like they have more than one consonant and more than one vowel, which probably means that in Phyrexian, Phyrexian is an agglutinative language, right? So in the same way that they can fuse words together to make new longer words, they can probably fuse these tense markers together to make new longer, more complex tense markers, right? And that's another layer of complexity here, and I think we need more examples of Phyrexian to be able to understand what's going on in here. As I mentioned before, we need stories written in Phyrexian in order to be able to understand what's going on in here, because obviously in the cards, most pretty much everything is written in present tense. I mean, we might get some deontics when they say like you can do that or your opponent can do that or stuff like that, but it's not enough variety for us to figure this out. The second one is an imperative, and also imperative means that it is used to give orders. There are many different ways to give orders in languages. Some orders might be actually request, and or like the politeness. For example, in Spanish, if I say untatela, it's an order like rub it all over your body, and yeah, one word means rub it all over your body. But if I say untesela, then it is very polite. Then I am asking you, would you rub it all over your body, dear sir, or something like that. And so yeah, it's very interesting that in Spanish we have these two different ways to give orders, depending on the politeness to the speaker. And so I'm not saying that this is what's happening in Phyrexian, but in Phyrexian they also certainly have different ways to give orders, and the distinction is not clear to us at the moment. But what I can tell you is that the imperative always contains the vowel lo. So yeah, if you see lo in Phyrexian like as a word alone by itself, or probably forming part of a word that is 4 or at most 5 letters long, it's probably some kind of imperative. Then we have what I'm calling the pure conditional, because most conditional tenses tend to have this one inside, like along with other stuff. And so, oh well, but sorry, I forgot to mention that the imperative, we can find it in Jacquemo's Testament, and it says put it on the bottom of your library instead, so it's an order, and it is pronounced something as logic or logic, yeah, something like that. Then we have what I'm calling the pure conditional. We can see it in Elish Norngren Cenobite, and it is talking about if they exist. Like the Phyrexians are talking that if other worlds exist, they must take Phyrexian's magnificence to them, which is, by the way, like what they are doing in Kaldheim. What I imagine that is the plot of the magic story in the near future. I have a video about that in case you want to check that out. But basically, I think that the Phyrexians want to create a Phyrexian planeswalker, and they are going to go through. Well, they already went to Kaldheim, but they are going to get all the pieces for that from Kaldheim and Kamigawa, New Capenna, and they need a new Phyrexian planeswalker because you need planeswalkers in order to keep artificial planes stable, which is something that we learned from Serra's realm. And since Karn is no longer in Mirrodin, which is the plane he created, it's very likely that New Phyrexia / Mirrodin is unstable right now. And so that's why the Phyrexians they actually need a Phyrexian planeswalker. But anyway, I don't know how I went into that tangent. But yeah, the point is that the conditional is something like ba. That's how I think it is pronounced. And most conditionals have this inside of them in some way or another. Then we have the number 4, the deontic obligative. It is pronounced something as fa. Yeah, this is a letter that we see very rarely in Phyrexian. It is a fricative, but with this diacritic that I think refers to aspiration or something like that. My best guess is that this is the unvoiced bilabial fricative. I don't know what else to make of it, honestly. But it kind of makes sense. Anyway, we see it in, well, here the deontic obligative. Don't confuse it, I mean, it's easy to confuse obligative with imperative, because imperative is about orders, but they are different, because the deontic obligative is talking about what you must do, like your responsibilities, maybe like what you have to do to keep your honor or stuff like that. So it's not that, and no one is ordering to do these things, and yet you must still do them because it is custom, it is your culture, or it is ethical, stuff like that. Not because someone is ordering you to do these things. You will notice that it also has the same vowel as the pure conditional, which it is interesting. Then we have this future tense, and I think maybe it is reduplicated in this case to make emphasis. So it's kaka, kaka. But yeah, I think that ka means like it is a future tense marker in Phyrexian. But if I say kaka, it doesn't mean that I want to go to the bathroom, or it means that I'm emphasizing the future. In this case, that the father of machine is coming, like right now, it is about to come. But I guess if you really need to go to the bathroom and you say kaka, like the immediacy of your request is understood by everyone across the language barrier. And then we have another kind of conditional. You might notice how it starts with a pure conditional as before, but then it has something else. This one we found it in Jigitaxias core ogre, and when it's saying that at the beginning, and it's interesting. I don't know how else to maybe there's a better word than conditional for this, but it is saying that when this happens, like at the beginning of this other thing happens. So it's a sort of condition, but it is more, but it is like I'm not saying like when I say in the morning the sun will come out. Yeah, it's a kind of cause and effect relationship, but I'm not saying like if the morning comes because I'm pretty certain that the sun will rise again tomorrow, right? So and it's not the same kind of certainty. I guess that's the difference. This is a conditional, but with a lot of certainty, or at least that's how I'm interpreting it. Here we have the seventh is the pure imperative, is just law, and we find it in Jigitaxias core ogre again when it tells you to draw 7 cards. And yeah, I mean it's nice to find these tense markers being used by themselves once in a while because that helps us have a better understanding of what they mean when they are compound with something else, right? Then we have the imperative that we see from in Sheldred, Whispering One. In this case, it is loksa, and when the schwa is very hard for me to say, but it's something like loksa. So I'm doing my best. Not like pronunciation. I know how it should be pronounced. Doesn't mean that I know how to pronounce it. But then the context is talking about return target creature card, and the difference is like why is it different here? Like why in Jingitaxias was it was just law, but here is loksa. Like I'm not entirely sure what is that xa adding here. But it must mean something. I don't know. And then we have the future, and here it is the pure future tense marker. It has nothing else with it. We see it in the Jumpstart Swamp. The Jumpstart Swamp lore. It's like this thing we had, Jumpstart. I have not. I've been trying to translate this thing. When I translate, I'm gonna make a video about it. Or someone else translates it. If someone else translates it and they send me the translation, I'm gonna make a video about it, and I'm gonna give you credit, of course. Then the same way I can give credit, for example, Citrus Inferno. It was the one he translated the Phyrexian scriptures, and I think that's an amazing achievement in Phyrexian in Phyrexiology, let's call it. But yeah, so I would give you credit. Well, let's continue. So this is the future. It's just jumpstart. We don't know how it is being used here. We don't know the context entirely. Probably Sheldred is talking about something that will happen to the resistance. That's what we know that from the Phyrexian Swamp. Sheldred is talking about the Miran resistance and something that will happen to them, that they will be made perfect and perfection will reign or something like that. It's hard to be sure. Then we have another conditional tense marker. Let's compare it. If we compare to the other conditional, I mean, it has a similar consonant at the beginning, but then the vowels are different. I'm sure this one is from Urabrask, the Hidden, and it's talking about when the Miran resistance arrived. It is pronounced something like, and yeah, that PF sound that appears all the time, for example, like in napfam. Uh, yeah, it is a very weird sound, but it is a realistically weird sound because this PF, it is a, for example, it's a very common sound in German, where Pferd means horse, Pflanz means plant, and I don't know, they use it in many other words. And so, yeah, it's a weird sound, but it is there, and maybe this means rather than a conditional, is like when, like I don't know, guys. Most of the tense markers are still very. I don't know, we have a lot to learn about the tense markers. Then we have here in the next one is a past tense marker. We saw that in Urabrask, the hidden. The context is his decree stunned the. I'm sorry. The context is his decree stunned the others. It is talking about how Urabrask stunned his followers when he ordered them to let the Miran resistance be, to let them be fine. And this is why I think that Urabrask and Sheldred will appear in the set this year called Dominaria United. I think that Urabrask and Sheldred are gonna betray the well, they have already been betrayed by the other Predators, but I think they're gonna start working with the Planeswalkers to defeat Phyrexian. And it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be a case of the enemy of my enemy is my enemy, because I know that Karn and Elspeth are not going to work. They are not going to want to work with Phyrexian Predators. Well, they are gonna have to, because like, who else to help? Who else is better to defeat the other Predators than another Phyrexian Predator, right? But anyway, where was I? This past tense. Oh yeah, and this is pronounced just as u, and it's a pure tense marker. You might notice there's nothing else there, so it's easy to understand what it means. The next one, here I have it as an habitual tense marker. We saw it in All Will Be One, Scene 2. The context is, our voice calls out. I think that the complete phrase is, our voice calls out to the lost and the broken, which is actually very beautiful. And it tells you a lot about how the Phyrexians see themselves. Like, they say, like, everyone who's lost and broken, come to us. We will help you. We will make you better, a better version of yourself. And that sounds very beautiful, right? Until you learn that they do it by force, and that it just often involves a big deal of pain. And yeah, I mean, if it was voluntary in all instances, maybe it would be better. But anyway, this is pronounced something as he or h, that this sound that, for example, is very common in Spanish, like in Mexico. But it's kind of similar to the ha, like in hospital or house. The difference is that sound you make it in your throat, and this is a little bit more of your mouth, with the roof of your mouth. Anyway, this is a ha. And here I have a note, actually. In the note says, I am not sure this is a tense marker, but I don't know what else it could be. Yeah, it could also be maybe a preposition of some kind. I'm not entirely sure at all. Then we have in order to. I don't know what is this. This is in the tense markers. Oh no, I know. If it. So what happens is that, okay. So we saw that this in All Will Be One, Scene 7, and the context is, we will flay the skin of this false world to reveal the face of new Phyrexia, or something like that. It's pronounced something as xeum, and you will notice that the beginning of this word is the present tense marker. And so that's very interesting. This is telling us that this is the tense marker, but with something else. And they are talking like, we're going to do this thing to do this other thing. And both things are like in present tense, right? Like yeah, we do one thing in order to do another thing. And I guess that could be a tense marker. I mean, this is certainly stretching the definition of what a tense is. But remember that tense marker is just like the name we are giving to these things. They might be more complex. They might mark more things than just tense. As I mentioned, they probably are marking the mood as well. Or in this case, can the mood be like your goal? I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, let's move on to the next one. This is like the perfect aspect, like the perfect tense, something like that. as is similar to the past tense. I mean, don't hear perfect. It's not perfect in the Phyrexian sense. And we saw it in All Will Be One, scene 8. And it says the great work has begun. And that something that has happened in English. Every time you use the verb to have with a participle, that's called like the perfect tense or past perfect. And apparently that's what this tense marker is conveying. Something that has happened. Or at least that's my best guess based on the examples we have seen. Then finally, the last two tense markers. This it must be some kind of present tense marker because it does begin with xe. It's pronounced something as xekit, and and we saw it in New Phyrexia scene 4, and it's talking about but whispers splinter the mind, and then and here I have a note saying that I think I need another category for these words, because here more than a tense marker, it is serving as a, how do you call it in English? Words like but and they connect two different phrases. Okay, I'm sure there's a word for that in English, but I don't remember it right now. But yeah, words like but and that connect different phrases. Apparently, you use these tense markers to make them. I don't know. It's difficult to be sure. And then we have another kind of future tense marker from the Phyrexian swamp lore, and in this case we don't know what the context is, but I suspect it's pronounced something as kappa or something like that. It could also be kaka, and I just misread the diacritics. I'm not sure. But anyway, let's move on now to the prefixes. Yeah, this is gonna be a long video. The prefixes, that the first one is to. It's a prefix. It appears in words like exile and graveyard. It's talking like something goes to the graveyard, something goes to exile. I think it is pronounced like, the unvoiced bilabial fricative, fa. The next one is in. We see it in, for example, exile. Another example of the word exile, something going in, no, something being in exile. We think it's pronounced something as dl, dl. And I think maybe sometimes it has a vowel after it, like an e. Maybe it's pronounced something as dli. And it might be related to another one another prefix we have seen in some other instances, which we know is pronounced as pli, pli, pli. So yeah, not much to say about that. The next one is on. I think this is the first prefix I identified. We see it in, for example, in the it is the first prefix I identified because I was looking at the card for Vorinclex Monstrous Rider, and it is talking about your putting counters on permanents or on players, and then it talks about your opponent doing the same thing, and all of those words began with the same three symbols, and so I figured that was probably like the on, like saying like putting stuff on something, like you turn it into a place, you use this. What's the next one? This one is a fun one because this marks the opposition. Not necessarily like the negative, but for example, it turns player into opponent. It turns double into half. And I think that's what the only times we have seen it, or have we seen it some other times. I don't think so, but I think those are good examples. Turning player into opponent and double into half. I think that gives us a good idea of how this preposition works. And it is pronounced as x, something like that. The next one is or, and it's very funny because the words and or in Phyrexian sometimes are suffixes appended at the end of words, so that's weird. And so I don't know any human language that does that, but it's fun. I mean, I like it. Languages are works of art, and I think I've never seen a language using and or as suffixes, but I really like it. It's a fun idea. And this one we have seen it in words like exile and permanent, and we think it's pronounced as the. duh. Like, duh. Like, for real. Like, for real, I think that's the actual pronunciation. Duh. Du toy. Anyway, then we have the ability marker. This one is a fun one. This also appears in a lot of places. In words like immortality, for example, but also haste, vigilance, stuff like that. All the abilities. It's funny because it appears in abilities in the game, like haste and vigilance, but it also appears in immortality, which I guess immortality is a kind of ability. And so I don't know. It's fun to have like a prefix that turns whatever comes after it into an ability that something can have. That's cool. Languages are works of art, and I really like that. Or rather, languages are like art galleries, and every word is a piece of art in that gallery. And I particularly like this one, the ability marker. We have seen it in vigilance, trample, haste, immortality. But the sad part is that I'm not sure how to pronounce it, because the first symbol is the thing that haunts my nightmares. Uh, but I know that the other two symbols are probably pronounced as G, like the J in measure, G, something like that, measure. Then we have and. I was confused because I was looking at anyway. And, which is probably pronounced something as xe, xe. Don't confuse it with the present tense marker, different vowels. One is xe and the other is xe. Yeah, I think I pronounced it correctly in that time. We have seen it in, for example, we have seen it used with the present tense marker, and that appears in Jack Moll's Testament, for example. This one I think means under. It is the plea. Sorry, I'm kind of sick, but I have to record anyway, right? I'm not gonna wait until I'm healthy. Who knows when that could happen? Anyway, this one I suspect is pronounced as plea, but now I notice that I added an extra consonant here, like a tha. But now I think this is a mistake. I think that consonant I put at the end was in fact part of the beginning of another word, and I mistakenly thought that it was part of the prefix. Anyway, it appears in words like skin and health. Then we have another one that means two. But don't be confused, because we have another one that means two. But what happens is that in English they use the word two for a lot of things. And Phyrexian splits those uses into different words. So, for example, the first one was more like a place. Two, like in two words. That was the first two we saw. Because he was talking about something going to the graveyard or to exile, to a place. But here he's talking about when some Phyrexians looked to Orabrask for guidance. And so you can agree that it's very different look up to someone than going to a place, right? So those are two different meanings of the word to, and apparently Phyrexian has two different words for that. Apparently. I mean, they are similar. No, they are not so similar. Anyway, this one is probably pronounced as u. Or I'm stupid. Is this just a tense marker? Okay, I mentioned in a previous video there are mistakes in here. Maybe this is just a tense marker and I misinterpreted it. I'm not sure. This is certainly something that I have to come back to later to analyze it. But this is one of the reasons the dictionary is good, right? Because before I would look this u in different instances and I wouldn't realize it was the same word. But now I can realize it is the same word. When I'm recording and I've already uploaded this stuff and everything, but better late than never, right? And it has a note that after seeing it in Vorinclex Voice of Hunger, I conclude it indeed means two. Now I have to see how it is being used in that card to understand what's going on in here. Anyway, then we have another version of the opposition marker that we have seen in other instances, like in Immortality and Hidden. And this is probably pronounced something like XT or something like that. Here I have a note that says that it might be used with verbs specifically, or it is two prepositions together. Yeah, could be. I don't know. Then I have another one that means two. It's a suffix from New Phyrexia scene 4. And I execute. Oh, I think this is the one that I also have in the tense markers. Yeah. This is also entry 15 in tense markers. But anyway, finally we have arrived to the vocabulary, which is like the good stuff. Yeah, that's what I do. I put the good stuff in like 50 minutes into the video because that's how you keep your audience. Anyway, this is the vocabulary section A, sorry. The first word is among, from Eleanor Grant Cenobite. The context is Gitaxians whisper among themselves. And the IPA is pronounced something as porext, something like that. It's difficult to know because it has that diacritic whose meaning I don't know. And yeah, this could be a compound word or not. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It has 5 consonants because Phyrexian uses a consonantal root system, and most real world languages that use consonantal roots have roots that are 1 or 2 consonants long. Whenever you have, but there are a few, very few words that have roots that are 4 or even 5 consonants long. What I think that happened is that when they were creating Phyrexian, they decided to use an unnatural number of consonantal roots with 4 and 5 consonants, which is interesting because it's not unrealistic, because some languages do use that for real, but by having many of them instead of just a few, it gives it like an alien feeling. So yeah, anyway, let's move on. The second one is ad, from Vorinclex Voice of Hunger. It is pronounced as babu, then it has some unknown sound at the end. The context is add 1 mana of any type to your mana pool. Anyway, let's continue. It's just very nice. It's just a verb. It's conjugated. It's conjugated in a way we understand. We know how to pronounce it for the most part. Nice. And then we have attack. Sorry. This one is from the Phyrexian swamp lore. We don't know the context, but we suspect it is pronounced something as Plinexus. Yeah, Plinexus. And the thing here is that this pli is the under, and so nex probably means attack. So this would be a compound word that means literally under attack. And it's weird because it's a very Indo-European thing to say, like literally be under the attack. But yeah, I mean, I guess I'll give them a pass for this one. It's just okay. So for you to understand what I mean, it's just, let's say that the expression "the coast is clear," that expression would not exist in a language that was spoken by people that lived in a landlocked country. You get what I mean? Because they would never say the coast is clear because they have no coast. Probably the Mongols in the Mongol language, they probably don't have any expression that remotely resembles the coast is clear, right? And so my point is that that's a very easily phrase to understand. Like how does it have a cultural influence, right? But my point is under attack also is a cultural influence like that, because the cultural influence in this case is to like a culture that have castles and fortresses that could be besieged, that could be put under attack. But if a culture didn't have such structures, it didn't have fortresses or castles, I guess they would never develop such an expression as under attack, right? But come to think of it, I don't know, maybe it makes sense that Phyrexians would have something like that. Because, yeah, imagine they have fortresses in New Phyrexia, stuff like that. So, I don't know, maybe it makes sense. Anyway, let's move on. Then we have bottom. Well, we are in the section for B. Those are all the words that start with A in the translation. Now we're in B, and the first one is bottom, from Jacquemot's Testament. And the context is when it's talking about put it on the bottom, like put a card on the bottom of your library. And I hate this one. I hate it because it's way too long. There's no way this isn't a compound word, but I cannot figure out what the composition could possibly be. But the pronunciation is something like Kejail Kid Sodrum. Sodrum. We have seen that one. Sodrum, 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 Sodrum. Oh, okay. Let's put a pin on that. Sodrum. I'm pretty sure. No, props. Because I'm pretty sure there's a word we have seen that sounds a little bit like this. Let's keep that in mind. The next one is Borns from New Phyrexian Scene 3 when it talks about the heart of Mirrodin Borns. The pronunciation is Eshkmenairai. And the composition, it has the Eshk, that means on, from before, that we mentioned it, and then Menairai, which I think means fire. And which I hope, I like this one in a phonetic sense. I like Menairai to mean fire. It would be cool. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Next one is beginning from Jingitaxia's Core Ogre. The context, well, talking at the beginning, and the pronunciation is something like ex fu. I literally says fuck. Fu. It says fuck. Like that. It is the labiodental voiceless fricative, the u, the glottal stop, and the k. Fuck. Something like that. Maybe it's like more like fuck. Like as I'm just reading how it is pronounced. I'm just telling you how it is pronounced. This is also probably a compound word because there are two sets of vowels here, and the ones at the beginning are clearly indicating like a plural, or maybe like something that is not a singular. Like maybe it's talking about each beginning. Anyway, yeah, that's the conclusion I arrived, that it means something like each beginning. But that will be like the first one, and then so probably the first the beginning of this word probably means beginning, but then well the rest could mean phase, like the beginning phase, like the phases of the game. I had not thought about that. Yeah, maybe it means phase. I need to see more examples of this, but yeah, maybe it means phase. In fact, I think I had already concluded that. I would have to check my notes. Anyway, the next one is by from Jigitaxia's Core Ogre. The context is reduced by 7. And the pronunciation is something like sir. And then we have bot from Jingitaxia's Core Ogre. Actually, we have seen this one in other examples before, I think. When it talks, it's not a goal, but a process. Oh, and it's pronounced sekit. I had not realized this is the same one I had. Yeah, I had this word also in the section about prepositions and tense markers, but it's always the same. Yeah, but this word it is used. It's always used like but in English, and yeah, apparently it's always the same. Interesting. Yeah, and if it seems crazy to you that I have not noticed some of these things, it's because like I don't know, like when you see a word and you write it down, like I try to check if I had already written it somewhere else, but I guess a few of them slipped through the cracks. I mean, what can I tell you? I'm not perfect. Next one is battlefield from Sheldred Whispering One. The context is talking to the battlefield, like you bring it back from your graveyard to the battlefield. And this one is a long one, but we know the composition. It is pronounced something like Eskt, Eskjeoksut, something like that. I think we need a couple more vowels in there. But yeah, the composition is Esk, which is the locative on. Then we have Tjeok. I mean, we need a vowel in between those two last consonants. But something like Jeok, something like that, and that means battle. And then Theksut, which means song. The battle song. Then we have another instance of battlefield, this time from Urabrask, the Hidden. The context is talking about creatures that enter the battlefield. Your creatures enter the battlefield. No, your opponent's creatures enter the battlefield tapped. And then the IPA pronunciation is Eshkjeok. Oh no, it's the same thing. I don't know. I was confused. Like, why is it the same as battlefield? Because it's the same word. Sorry, mental part. Geok, battle, and then it's interesting that here the word zone, instead of being thexut, is just text. I wonder why it has this vowel in one instance but not in the other one. I wonder. And then notes is another instance doesn't have the U before the final T. Good to know. The next one is broken from All Will Be One Scene 2. The context is to the lost and the broken, and the pronunciation is pen-I. Pen-I, broken. Next one is begun. From All Will Be One Scene 8, the great work has begun. And the pronunciation is ixt fu ek. Composition and come to think of it, it's obviously similar to this beginning from Jigitaxias. And it also has the double vowel at the beginning. But this one is being used as a verb. That ending with that A at the end is a verb. It is talking about the great work did the action of beginning. This is so it is being used as a verb, but not in here. So that just leaves me with more questions about about how does this word work. Like, it is compound. That's all I know. It's not a single word. It is made of at least two smaller words. Anyway, then we have body from New Phyrexia Scene 4. The context is the body is whole, and the pronunciation is pexan. And then it has, and then we have this one is confusing because I think it needs more vowels here, or either it needs more vowels or someone put way too many consonants by mistake in here. Anyway, the next one is basic from the Phyrexian swamp. The context is basic land. The pronunciation is not completely understood because it has that word there, but it's something like eopithegeg, something like that. And the composition is basic and land. Basic is like eopit, and land is theged. We need more. There must be more vowels in these words. There must be. Anyway, let's move on. The vocabulary. Now we are in C. This is probably the longest section. I need to hurry up. This video is gonna be so long. Cards. From Jacmot's Testament. Context. You might play face-up cards you own. The IPA pronunciation is Gjainush, and the root is Gjunj. No, well, the consonants. This one is interesting because I think this is how we learn how to use plurals in Phyrexian. And if I'm not mistaken, this is a clear example of a word that uses a consonantal root with four consonants. And then we have a card, also from Jacmot's Testament. It says, if a card would be put into your graveyard. I pronounce something as Gjainj. I can pronounce that. Interesting. The next one is Cenobite from Elishnorn Grand Cenobite. The context is the exact same thing I just said. The IPA pronunciation is Shahat. Well, this one is greatness that I'm choosing to pronunciate. I put some extra vowels in there for me to be able to say it, like Shahat. That's how I think it's pronounced. But in reality, we only have one A vowel. So it's something like Shahat Cheonobt. And it's interesting that we have that Cheonobt. It sounds very close to Cenobite, if you ask me. Cenobite. Anyway, so that's the Grand Cenobite. We have the creature from Elish Norm Grand Cenobite. The context is talking about legendary creatures, and the pronunciation is something like Gai Pfex. Gai Pfex. And then this Gai, something like that is legendary. And then creature is pronounced a little bit like Pfex. Then creatures, well, it's the same thing, but now in plural. It's talking about, well, it is from Elishonor Grand Cenobite. It said other creatures you control. And the pronunciation is PX, PX with a long E sound. Instead of just being PX, PX, it is longer, it's PX. Or at least like the vowel is doubled, which I mean makes it longer. I mean, it could be that doubling the vowel changes it in some other way that we don't know. But right now, what makes sense is to assume that it makes it longer. And then we have controlled from, again, Eleanor Grand Cenobite. Other creatures you control, it is pronounced something like Cookspool. Anyway, notes second person conjugation. It's talking about creatures you control. Because the next one is also controlled, but it is also from Eleanor Grand Cenobite, but it's talking about creatures your opponents control. And this time is Coxupel. So this one is interesting because this one taught us how to the basics of how to conjugate verbs in Phyrexian. From then on, we were able to figure out the rest from looking at other examples. But this one, it was very good because it's two words and the only difference is just one vowel. Next one is counters from Vorinclex Monstrous Rider. The context is if you would put one or more counters. The IPA pronunciation is yuhp. We need more vowels. And then, it's probably just a single root with 4 consonants. Then we have come from New Phyrexia Sim 5. And then the context is, the father of machines is coming and is pronounced as Mochek. And this is one of the few instances in which we know the entire, Mochek. Mochek. This is one of the few instances in which we know the pronunciation with a very good degree of certainty because we have all the vowels necessary. So thank God for short verbs in Phyrexian. Then we have Core Ogre from Jigitaxia's Core Ogre. This is, I don't know what is the composition of this word. I just know that the first 2 words, DL, DL, mean something like in. So I imagine that it means like core, probably is being translated as in the middle or in the center or something like that. I don't know. The pronunciation is Dlemkrukn. Cards. Another instance of cards from Jigitaxia's Core Ogre. The context is draw 7 cards. The pronunciation is Yijinsh. Notes: other versions of this word have I instead of E and U before the last consonant. Interesting. I have no idea what that could possibly mean. Next one is creating from Jingitaxia's Core Ogre. The context is the phrase creating the perfect Phyrexia. And here is Nakaim. Or, come to think of it, maybe I saw the diacritics incorrectly, and maybe it could be something like Napfine, like working. That would make more sense. Because Napfam is work, and maybe I just misunderstood the diacritics or something. I would have to look at this again. It could be that these are just words that are similar but are not the same word. But who knows? And then we have creature card from Sheldred Whispering One. And the context is target creature card, and the IPA is Fex. No, no, forget it. Too many consonants in a row. Composition. Fex is creature and Jinj is card. Notes. Other instances of card have U before Sha and I instead of E. Which is interesting because isn't that like the opposite that had happened with this card one? Huh. Yeah, see what I mean? This is the power of this dictionary. It makes you realize and make connections. It helps you make connections you would have never made otherwise. No, let's continue. Then creature from Shieldred Whispering One. Sacrifices a creature, like talking about your opponent. Phyrexian. Notes. Other instances 4 and 5, do not contain the I diphthongs. Yeah, I don't know what that's about. Creature from Urabrask the Hidden. Creatures your opponent controls. And this one is just Pfex. Notes. Why doesn't it have the second vowel? I know, right? I'm so confused. I don't know why the word creature sometimes has those vowels and sometimes it doesn't. But anyway, here's another instance of K. This one from Urabrask, the Hidden One. Context: when the Miran resistance arrived. Okay, this one is I cheated a little bit here because this is being translated as arrived, but we know from other instances that like the same Phyrexian word was used as come. It's coming, like Father of Machines is coming in another one. So like, I know it means like to come and like how different are come and arrive, honestly. So anyway, so that's why I put it here. IPA is mochk, something like that. Notes. 9com has an E before the final consonant. Yeah, and I noticed. I don't know what that's about. No, it's probably a conjugation. Anyway, let's move on. Controller from Vorinclex Voice of Hunger. Context: during its controller's yeah, on tap step. That's what we're talking about. The IPA is Napfam Supul. So it's interesting because it has Napfam, which means work, but also it's like that's the confusing thing about this word because it is used as work, as in the great work. It's like Shahad Napfam. But then this Napfam is also used to turn verbs into nouns. For example, here like kuksupul, kuksupul or something, which we know means control. But suddenly you put Napfam kuksupul and it is the one who does the controlling. And it's confusing. It's confusing how that works. Because, yeah, anyway. Then we have creatures, again, from All Will Be One, Scene 2. The context is to the lost and the broken. It is pronounced as Hex, something like that. So another instance of creature. Notes. It probably uses the wrong prefix. Oh, so it is using the locative too, but they should have used the other one using Urabrask the Hidden. I don't know, maybe. I am not sure at all. 19. Call out from All Will Be One. Context, or voice calls out. And then the IPA is Shektha. And then notes, no fucking clue. Yeah, I mean, there are way too many vowels in here. I know I'm always complaining about the lack of vowels, but in this case there are just way too few. Like, what's going on? No idea. Then we have complete from New Phyrexia season scene 1. Context: the great work is complete, and it says it's plinapfem. Composition: PL, similar to in, and then napfem, which is work, like it is inside the work apparently. And then we have another instance of coming from New Phyrexia scene 6. He's coming, Mochek. And then complete from the Phyrexian swamp floor. The context is unknown, but we recognize it as a prenup fine. It's probably like a process, come to think. It's because I prenup fine is the like the imperfect conjugation. Interesting. But yeah, again, it's clear, it's in, and napfam is work. Then the next one is we are in the D section now. D and the first one is double from Borinclex Monstrous Rider. Context: put twice that many. The pronunciation is pfu, pfus. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say about that. Then we have draw from Jingy Taxi Score Ogre. Context: draw 7 cards. It is pronounced as Mprasuj. Mprasuj? Yeah, maybe. It is conjugated for the second person, so that it is a verb there. Dwellers from Urabrask, the Hidden One. Context: the Furnace dwellers looked to Urabrask. And then IPA, no, wait, I need more consonants. Composition unknown, but it contains foreigners and dwellers. Probably dwellers is the second part of this word because that's where we have the plural. But then I don't know what to make of the beginning. Well, it's probably foreigners, right? But like, where does foreigners ends and dwellers begin? It's not easy to know. So yeah, we simply don't know. Then we have decree from Urabrask the Hidden. Context: he's decreased on the others, and is pronounced as asm. Then we have death from All is One, Scene 6. Context: they fear death. IPA, thuks or thukuks. Destroyer from New Phyrexia, Scene 5. IPA, Napfmex Plugikosh. And then, well, the composition is that Napfan means work, X is the opposite marker, but then we have this Pligikosh. Maybe it means, I mean, that PL probably means inside, but inside the creation. So basically the composition is creation inside, not person. The person that takes out of creation. Yeah. The person that takes out of creation. That would be like the literal translation of destroyer in Phyrexian. And then we are in the section for the E. And then the first one is exile from Jagmot's Testament. Context: if a card would be put into your graveyard or exile, and this one is long, but we know all of its components. You know what? I'm going to just skip the pronunciation because in most of this it's not useful at all. Like, I don't know how to pronounce this mesh of consonants. We need more vowels. But anyway, so the composition is first the locative, then exile, then zone, which I can pronounce, text, and then the, which means or. And then we have another instance of exile, this time from also Jagmot's Testament, cards you own from exile, and then well, the composition is first the DL locative, maybe it means from. Yeah, maybe it means from. And then we have, well, Shukset, the exile, and then text zone. And then we have end from Jiggy Taxia Score Ogre. The context is at the beginning of your end step. And then we have the Plinapfam. Plinapfam is complete, obviously. It's in work, so it's complete. And then Kepeonuch step. So, a note. So basically, end means basically end step in Phyrexian means your complete step. End and complete seem to be the same in Phyrexian, which makes sense because in the Phyrexian way of thinking, by the end you are complete. So end and complete are the same thing, which is nice to see. And apparently step is Kepeonuch. which is relatively easy to say. Then this one, I mean, I don't know how to translate it, but I put it even as, because I didn't know what else to do. It is from All Will Be One, Scene 5, and it says, even as we offer immortality. Something like Gleeks. Like they fear death, even as we offer immortality. And all the other words in that sentence were accounted for, except for even as. So I imagine that's what this is doing somehow in there. I mean, the beginning is in, and the second part looks a little bit like a tense marker. I don't know what to make of that. Next we have evolution from the Phyrexian scriptures. The context is from void evolved Phyrexia. And the IPA is Sekthigis. The composition is this Sekth, which I don't know what it means, but Gis means evolution, and we know that because we have another example of the word evolution, also from the Phyrexian scriptures, which says that the grand evolution began. And here we have Shaha'at, or which we know from other examples, greatness, and then Shahad Gis. So yeah, we can see that Gis is the common element between these two words that apparently are talking about evolution, so it must mean evolution. Then we have this section for the F, and the first one is father from Jagmot's Testament, because it is pronounced as Mo'aith, and yeah, Mo'aith, like the last part of the name of Jagmot. Moth means father, and specifically Ya'ach Mo'aith means father of machines. Notes, the I could be related to a genitive case, the testament of the machine father. Actually, it's part of, well, it is part of a genitive, but it is a testament of the father of machines. Anyway, then we have face up, which actually this one does means face, specifically face. It's not an expression. Face up, Jagmot's Testament. And then we have the context is you might play face up cards. And what I mean is that face up card is a very English expression. For example, in Spanish we say mouth up or mouth down cards, which I know you have your mouth in your face, but my point is that not all languages express that thing in the same way, okay? And so Phyrexians could have used it, like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a language that uses eyes down and eyes up, or some other part of the body, or maybe they don't use parts of the body to talk about cards being face up or not, or stuff like that. But apparently Phyrexians use face. That's really something interesting. Phyrexian is a language that was made to be realistic and to not resemble English. But when it comes to phrases and expressions, they do they fall into the same expressions of English, and they end up resembling English in that sense. So, for example, someone was telling me in the comments of one of the recent videos how I cannot assume that the word power in that phrase of the new sources of mana power the machine orthodoxy. And then I use that same word for power in a phrase for Jagmot sees the power of the machines. He was like, you cannot assume they mean the same thing. And he's like, well, no, I can't. But I probably can, because like, even if Phyrexian doesn't resemble English in its structure, it does tend to resemble it in how it uses its vocabulary. Anyway, then we have... anyway, did I say how to pronounce face? Is Natlch. And it means to literally mean face. Because there are other examples of this, and so we have seen it anyway. And then we have flash from Jingitaxia's Cor Ogre. The pronunciation is something like Jisiklrums. And then the beginning, that J is the ability marker. Sikl means fast. But then we have gums. Yeah, gums. No idea. If you know what gums means, please call this toll-free number. We need your help. Anyway, no, it would be like, if you know what gums means, or you have any information that could lead to its decipherment, please call this number. It's completely anonymous, and we need your help. Anyway, then we have flesh from all will be one, scene one. And then the context is we are perfection made flesh. And the pronunciation is like inepphom. But there's a weird thing here. This nepphom looks very similar to work, naphthan. Could it mean that flesh and work are related somehow in Phyrexian? No idea. It could be just that they are similar words. I mean, there are tons of similar words in English, and I cannot come up with one at the moment. Like paint and like ball and pole and no, any other example. Beach and well, that's an example. Come on, Fair, come on. Truck and talk, different words, different meanings, similar words. Truck and talk. There are better examples than that. Anyway, then we have fear, from all will be one, scene 5. The context is they fear death, and then I'm not gonna pronounce that because I don't know how, but it is a verb conjugated for the third person in the habitual or the imperfect aspect, so that's nice. Then we have flay, all will be one, we will flay, and it uses it is a verb. Well, this one I can't pronounce. Xazag. Xazag. Yeah, like flay, and it's conjugated for the first person, which is a conjugation we see very rarely. We have seen very few conjugations for we. And then we have face from all will be one, scene 7, to reveal. The context is to reveal the face, and then this one's like natlaich. Notes. Face up doesn't have I. Perhaps that makes substantives and adjectives. Maybe. Who knows? Then we are in the G section. The first one is the graveyard from Jacquemot's Testament. The context is if a card would be put into your graveyard. Do I try to pronounce this thing? No, forget it. But I can tell you that the composition starts with the locative to, then thuxij is graveyard, I think, and then thext, which is song, or thexut sometimes. I don't know why sometimes it is thext and sometimes it is thexut. We are not sure. And then we have grand from Eleanor Grand Cenobite. I know that this word is also in the one for Cenobite, but I wanted to have an entry just for the word great or grand or greatness or whatever. It's from Eleanor Grand Cenobite. The pronunciation is Shaha'at Sheonopt. Shaha'at is grand, Sheonopt is Cenobite. And then we have go from Jacquemot's Testament. Context. If a card would be put into your graveyard. Okay, I know that in the phrase it says put, but we have seen this word used in other instances where they use the verb to go. And in fact, we have seen other instances of the verb put, and it is different from this thing. So it's talking about like if the card would go to your graveyard. The pronunciation is vujaik, and it is apparently like a subjunctive conjugation. It's talking about like cards. No, well, now I know that more than a subjunctive is an imperfect. Like if a card is in the process, because that's why it's imperfect. Like if it's in the process of going to your graveyard. Then the next one is also go from Jacquemot's Testament. It says put it on the bottom, and it says vujuk. And yeah, it's interesting because the other one was conjugated for the third person, like if the card was in the process of going to your graveyard. But this one says like you put it in the bottom instead. So instead of the card doing it, you do it. Instead of being an intransitive verb, becomes a transitive verb. Or that's my guess. Then we have get from Eleanor Grand Cenobite. Context, other creatures you control get +2/+2. The IPA is Gitapek. Nice. One of the words we can pronounce fully and with confidence. Gitapek. And notes. It's a third person conjugation. Yeah, I know. And gi also appears in one put. Yeah, this I think this is when I realized that the gi was part of the of some verb conjugations. I still don't understand entirely how gi works, but there it is. Um, Next we have goal from Jingy Taxia's Core Ogre. Context, it's not a goal. IPA, forget it. Composition, floops, desire, and then thexut, zone. Oh, it's interesting because like a goal is the zone of your desires or the zone of what you want. I don't know, it's a cool way to say goal. Remember what I said earlier about languages being works of art? That and well, being galleries of art. The word goal is another piece that I like in this gallery, because yeah, a goal is the zone of your desires. It's almost poetic, isn't it? No, PL appears. Oh yeah, maybe PL is at the beginning here is a prefix, so it's like in the desire zone. I don't know, something like that. Then we have another instance of graveyard, this time from Sheldred Whispering One. Context from your graveyard. I'm not gonna try to pronounce that, but DL is the locative, Thuxij is graveyard, and Thexut is song. Then we have guidance from Urabrask, the hidden one, and the context is they looked at Urabrask for guidance. Can I pronounce this? Si Xen. Xen. Something like that. We don't know the composition for this word. We have no idea, but at least we can rest assured that apparently this is a verb. Forget it. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking that maybe the word I translated here as looked was actually guidance, and the word I translate as guidance actually means look. Oops. It's something I'm realizing just now. But I'm not perfect. All of these will be fixed in the second edition. And then we have the give from Itch the Kick. Oh, this one is interesting because it is a Phyrexian word we know, but not from any of the texts we have seen before, because there is a character named Itch the Kick, and we were told that his name means reap and give. And I imagine that the kick is give in Phyrexian. Or that's my guessing. That's my guess. Next we are in the age section, and we begin with Haste from Borinclex Monstrous Rider. This is Gisikluvushk. It has the ability marker. The composition is it has the ability marker. It has sickle, which we also saw in Flash. So it's interesting because both Flash and Haste are about velocity, immediacy. And so it's interesting that both of them contain sickle. But the difference is that while the end of Flash has something that we don't know what it means, the end of Haste has vushk, which we know means go from other examples, right? So it's very nice to see. In fact, I think this is how we realized that vushk didn't mean put, that it had to mean go, because it appeared in Haste. Anyway, the next one is half from Borinclex Monstrous Rider. The context is they put half that many counters. Can I attempt that? No, I cannot attempt to pronounce that. But the composition starts with PL, which means under, and then the X is the opposite marker, and then plus which means double. I'm sorry. Then we have Heart from New Phyrexia, Scene 3. Context, the Heart of Mirrodin Borns. IPA is Ebeage. I also like how this word sounds, Ebeage, heart. Then next we have Hidden from Urabrask, the Hidden. the IPA is something like exte fibers, exte fibres, something like that. We know that exte is some kind of opposite marker, I guess, and then so that means that fibres, fibers must mean something like found, and so hidden would be literally not found, which I mean, yeah, makes sense. And then we have hunger from Boring Clegg's Voice of Hunger. And then the problem with this one is that it has three times the consonant I don't know how to say. And so all I can tell you is that it's pronounced as a. It has some consonants before and after that, but I don't know what they are. I have no idea. Next we are in the E section, and the only word in this section is immortality, from All Will Be One Scene 5. Context, we offer immortality. IPA, it begins with the ability marker, so it's like G, GX something like that. The composition is, first ability marker, and then this XT or something, is the opposition marker, actually the same one we just saw in Hidden. And then we have Thux or Thukux, which means death. And so, yeah, that's nice. So it's the ability to not die. Then we have the section for L. We begin with library from Jacquemot's Testament. Context, put it on the bottom of your library instead. IPA is text. And this is what is interesting, because the composition, it starts with text, and text is library, and then text or thekuxt is thexut, sorry. Thexut is zone and text is library. But check it out. Text sounds a little bit like deck, like a deck of cards. Could that be a little bit of English influence in the vocabulary, not in how Phyrexian uses its vocabulary, but the vocabulary itself? I don't know, but it's interesting. And then we have legendary from, well, I put here Eleginorn Grand Cenobite, but really all the Praetor cards contain this. The context is legendary creature, is Gipfex or something like that, and that Gi is legendary, and Pfex is creature. Then we have looked, which is this is the thing that I think that maybe I made a mistake, because this is from Urabrask, the hidden one. The context is it looked at Urabrask for guidance. I think this word is guidance, and the one I had as guidance was looked. So sorry for that, but and this one I cannot not say it because it only has one vowel. So yeah, no idea about that. Then the next one is let them be, from Urabrask the Hidden, when it says that let them be, let the Miran resistance be in peace, which is really interesting. Like it's not a Phyrexian thing to say, but the idea is that the influence of the red mana, because it is the color of passion, it is making Urabrask maybe feel a little bit of compassion, maybe something like that. It would be interesting, because I don't know if it's even possible to redeem the Phyrexian Praetors after the genocide they committed in Phyrexia, because they didn't just kill the Mirans, they did horrible things to them. So I'm not sure that the Praetors can be redeemed, but maybe they can be shown to be more complex than they were before, I think. Anyway, this is pronounced something as prosui. I think that maybe it means peace or alone. Actually, this one is followed by law, which is interesting. I think it's one of the very few instances in which the tense marker is at the end and not at the start. So maybe, I don't know why would they do that. Maybe it's emphasis. Maybe by changing that word order makes it more impactful somehow. Like, I don't know, because sometimes that happens, even in English. You change the word order to make emphasis on one thing or another. Maybe by putting the law, the tense marker, the imperative at the end, you are making more emphasis on that. Not sure. Then we have land from Boring Clay's Voice of Hunger. Context is when you tap a land. The IPA is thegged or thegged. And it is similar to instances of the of world, but not similar enough, I think. And then it says that land from Boring Clay's Voice of Hunger. And the reason this is a different entry is because in Phyrexian it has something at the beginning. I mean, it ends. It has a compound word that ends with land, but then it has something else at the start. It's pronounced something as get shared, and that getch probably means that or this, like pointing at one specific thing. I guess getch. Then lost from all will be one, scene 2. IPA Uraich, yeah, and it means to the lost. And come to think of it, the beginning of this one is a prefix that means to. So maybe that would mean that lost it would be a consonantal root with only 2 consonants in Phyrexian. Could it be? Maybe. No, I think no. Two is different. It goes in the other direction. No, sorry, false alarm. But yeah, Uraich seems to mean lost in Phyrexian. And then we have yet another instance of land. From the Phyrexian swamp, basic land. We had already seen this one when we saw the instance for basic. Then we have M, the section for M. We begin with machines. How long is it? We are only halfway. Machines. From Jachmot's Testament. Context. Jachmot. Or like the machine father, I should have written. IPA, Yaak. So yeah, that's machines. Magnificence. From Eleshnon Grand Cenobite. Context. Bring Phyrexia's magnificence to them. IPA is Shaha'ath Napit. Notes, composition is only partially known, probably a verb, because we know that Shaha'at means grand, but what is and what is Napit? I don't know. Then we have Monstrous Rider from Boring Clay's Monstrous Rider. I'm not gonna try to say that, way too many consonants, and the composition is unknown. I wish I knew so little about every word so that this would go a lot faster. Then maximum hand size from Jigitaxia's Core Ogre. Context: maximum hand size is reduced. IPA Nakloparsaig. Maximum hand size. This is obviously a compound word whose composition I'm entirely ignorant of. Then we have make from Sheldred Whispering One. Its IPA is Napfum Ijet. Napfum is make or person or work or something, but then Ijet means whisper. Notes. I don't know how to translate this word. It's probably because I was struggling with Napfam at that time. I still didn't know exactly what it was. I mean, I still don't know what it is. I'm still very confused, but I'm pretty sure that it's related to work somehow. And you can translate it as work most of the time, but like there are like those few instances in which are confusing. Anyway, then we have mana from Boring Clay's Voice of Hunger. Context: when you tap a land for mana. IPA Ma'anaipum. It's interesting because I think this is one of the few words that is the same or pretty much the same in Phyrexian as it is in English. Because in English it is mana, and it says that in Phyrexian it is ma'an. Pretty nice. Then we have the section for M. We have mana again. From Boring Clay's Voice of Hunger. Add 1 mana to your mana pool. Because here it's talking about the mana pool, and it's ma'an peok. And it seems that ma'an is mana, peok is pool. I think that mana, I think it was one of the first words that I found the meaning by myself, because many of the words, many of the examples of Phyrexian had already been translated by the community when I got into this. But then shortly after I started this, the Phyrexian predators in Phyrexian were released, and then sorry, I'm tired. And then, well, I started translating them, and many people in the community started translating them as well, but they couldn't figure out what this was, and I think maybe I was the first one to say that it was mana, ma'an. At least I was among the first ones to say this. Anyway, and then from New Phyrexia, we have context, new sources of mana, and then ma'an. Or I don't know, maybe maybe people had already noticed this because of the, but no, but I remember specifically people were having trouble with Borington's Voice of Hunger because they couldn't figure many things out. But yeah, and that was probably because they couldn't, they didn't have a tool like this dictionary to see that they had already seen this ma'an word before in New Phyrexia Scene 2 when it talks about the new sources of mana. And to be, and I didn't know it as either. I just figured that since it was pronounced similarly to mana, it had to mean mana. But now that we have this dictionary, something like that will never happen again. Now, if we see a word in Phyrexian we don't know, it will be easy to check in here if we had already seen it before or not. Next comes mind. From New Phyrexia Scene 4, context, whisper splinter the mind. And it is terriert, something like that. Mephidros from Phyrexian Swampler, context unknown. IPA, Esh Mephidros. It's talking about like something being on Mephidros. That's all we know. Mephidros is a place in Mirrodin that was aligned with black mana. And vocabulary, next, now we are in the end section, and then we have new from Jingitaxian's Core Ogre. Context, creating the perfect Phyrexian. I know that in the context doesn't appear new, but Phyrexia is the new perfect world. And so the IPA, this word is super long. In Phyrexia, in a campfires kethed, something like that. Composition. In at first I thought it meant new. It has been found the first word here does not mean new. Instead, it's a version of work. Oh yeah, it is a version of work. Or flesh. Flesh also starts with that consonant that is the same at the beginning of Jacmo. So yeah, Phyrx and world is Kethed or something like that. Here's a cool drinking game. Every time I say or something like that during this video, shove a glass up your ass. You probably thought I was gonna say that you should drink it, right? So did I. So did I. But imagine we are so deep into this video, no one will see that joke. If you see that joke about the drinking game, don't do anything. Or no, put a comment, and then I'll know, and you'll know, and we'll have this connection between two strangers in this chaotic and random world. We'll know that I made a stupid joke, and that you watched it. And that's a connection that no one can take from us. Anyway, funny, there's another drinking game. Every time I see anyway, snort a line of cocaine. And then we have not from Vorincleg's Voice of Hunger. Context, that land doesn't untap. And this is something like L. And then notes, I'm not sure what this is, but I suppose it must be a negation of some kind. Yeah, because otherwise, nothing is being negated in that sentence. It's so confusing. Because it says, that land untaps. Like, no, it doesn't. And you don't see any kind of negation. And this is the only thing that is unaccounted for, so it must be some kind of negation, right? And then we have O, the section for O. And then we have other from Eleshnorn Grand Cenobite. Context, other creatures you control. And it is pronounced as Sal. Easy. Opponents from Eleshnorn Grand Cenobite. Context, creature your opponents control. IPA, Exnach. It is made of X, which means negation, and Naksh, which means player. And then we have offer from all will be one. The context is as even as we offer immortality. I'm not gonna attempt to pronounce that. Then we have orthodoxy from New Phyrexia Scene 2. It's talking about the machine orthodoxy. And too many jazz. Like, okay, I'm gonna try to pronounce it just because it's funny. We need more consonants. We need more vowels in here. Composition. Well, we know that Yag is machine. Yag is machine. And then we have orthodoxy, which I imagine must be a compound word. It has to be. It has way too many consonants. and 1, 2, 3, 4 of those consonants are just ja, like in measure. Next one, Sp. We're in the section for P, and the first one is Predator from Eleshnorn Grand Cenobite. Context: Predator. IPA, Pexeter. It sounds vaguely similar to Predator. Pseter, something like that. Notes: probably a compound word. Yeah, probably. Or Xeter? Yeah. Then we have player from Boring Clicks Monstrous Rider. Context: on a permanent on a player. And IPA, Eshknaksh. Eshk is locative, Naksh is player. Permanent from Boring Clicks Monstrous Rider. On a permanent or a player. IPA, Eshk is Tijde. And the composition is Eshk is the locative, as Tij is permanent, and the is or. One of those instances where or is appended at the end of a word. And then we have play from Jack Mott's Testament. Context: you might play face-up cards. IPA, Bukud, something like that. Then we have put from Boring Clicks Monstrous Rider. And this is why the first put from Jack Mott's Testament we translated as go, because we saw it in haste, and because here we saw another Phyrexian word being translated as put, and that word is which seems vaguely similar to put, like putut. I don't know. Could be. Then we have another instance of put from Boring Clicks Monstrous Rider, if I'm putting with put, but this time is conjugated for the third person, and notice how this time it uses the gi particle. Gi, pthe, e. Something like that. Then we have another instance of put from Boring Clicks Monstrous Rider, and this is also different from the previous two. And it says that they put half that many, and this is also a third person conjugation but without the ye. Next we have process from Genki Taxias Core Ogre. Context: is not a goal but a process, the process of creating the perfect Phyrexia. And the IPA is Kepenchodrum. No idea. This is compound, but no idea how it is. We have pool from Boring Clicks Voice of Hunger. Add 1 mana to your mana pool. Remember that Ma'an is pool, but Peok is pool. Then we have perfection from All Will Be One Scene 1, where it says we are perfection made flesh. It is the IPA is Epirxnapfine. which means E is, we don't know what it is, but I know that Phyrex is perfection, it is Phyrexia, and not fine, which is the work. So it could be like, we are the perfect work. Uh, Phyrex not fine. Phyrex not fine will be like the perfect work. ¿Cuándo paro de grabar esta cosa? Next, we have power from New Phyrexia Scene 2. The context is new sources of mana power the machine orthodoxy. Originally, I had written this as Xylu X, but then I realized that because it was too pixelated, I misread the first two symbols, and they are actually the Y particle, so it should be Gilu X. And then we have Phyrexian from New Phyrexia Scene 3. It's talking about the Phyrexian scheme, and the IPA is Phyrex. And then we have Phyrexia from Phyrexian scriptures. The IPA is Phyrex Kethect, the perfect world. Phyrex Kethect. And then we have Perfection from Phyrexian scriptures. Context, so it's perfection. But instead of being a version of Phyrex, it's actually inapfem. The E is not translated, but now I realize I've seen it before. And then apfem is work. So it's like completed work? I don't know, it's related to work. No idea. Actually, the note here, no idea why this means perfection. Yeah, it's kind of confusing. But that E thing appears, I am noticing things. I'm noticing things that I have to come back to this at some point and then look at them. We have way more clues than I thought we had. Then finally we have another stand for Predators. This is actually from Dark Discoveries. These are some comics, and there's some dialogue there that we don't understand completely. But I know that this word here means Dil Psyter, which means like inside the Predator. I guess it's saying, actually Jingitaxia says this to the character in the comics. I guess Jingitaxi is saying that they should take that guy in front of the Predator. Then R, reduced. From Jingitaxias con Ogre, context, reduced by 7. Is ma I or something like that. Then we have return from Sheldred, Whispering One, context, return target creature card. And I come to think of it, this is some kind of tense marker. Yeah, this is notes. This is some kind of tense marker. Lokse. Apparently, at first I thought it was a verb. Sorry, I know better now. Resistance from Urabrask, the Hidden One. Context: when the Miran resistance arrived. IPA. Merodin Karajir. Well, Merodin is Mirodin, and this Kararojir, or something like that, must be the word for resistance, which itself I think is compound, but I don't know how to say it. And we have reveal from All Will Be One, Scene 7. Context: reveal the face of New Phyrexia. And then Krekaig. This is how I use how was it? Cap Phyrex Krekak. We will decipher Phyrexian. Well, we will reveal Phyrexian. And then we have resistance from Phyrexian Swamp Lore. Context, we don't know the context, but it's just the word resistance again, the one from the also appears in Urabrask. And then we have a rip from each the kick. So that's all we know. We know that each the kick means rip and give. And then we have the S. We start with section S. We start with sorcery from Jagmot's Testament. Context: sorcery. IPA is Cash Gums. Gums! For real! No, for real. This is real. This is real. Gums is the word at the end of Flash that I didn't know what it meant. Remember that stupid joke I made of like, if you had any information about what the Gums means. Here it is. Sorcery has Gums. So So now we can see that sorcery and flash both have gums. I mean, that doesn't tell us what gums means, because, I mean, if sorcery was just gums, then we could say that flash would be like a fast sorcery, but it's more complex than that, because it has this kashipi. But it's interesting, because now we know, oh, I had not seen this connection. And then we have skin from New Phyrexia Scene 3. Context: beneath Phyrexian skin. IPA. No idea. Composition: PL means under. And then the Vaish means skin. And then what else? I suspect that they made a mistake in this part. I think they messed up the order of the letters. I suspect. Anyway, and then we have skin, also from the Phyrexian altar. There is not much context in this case, but we can just see that we have X, which is the opposite marker, and then we have just like the consonantal root, the taxasha, but without any vowels. We don't know how to say this. But it means on. Well, skin actually means on skin, like flame. Anyway, then we have step from Jengitaxia's core ogre. Context: at the beginning of your end step. IPA: plunapfam complete kepenuch. Composition: plunapfam complete kepenuch step. Swamp walk from Sheldred Whispering 1. Context: swamp walk. And the composition is well, first ability marker, then kashkum, which means swamp, and finally end, which apparently means walk. And if that's the case, well, no. This E is not part of the root for walk. It's part of the conjugation. Huh. Sorry, my bad. But now I know. Now we know. Then we have sacrifice from Sheldred Whispering 1. Context: that player sacrifices a creature. IPA. No, well, no, forget it. The composition unknown. But at least all I can tell you is that it is conjugated as a verb in third person. And it says that player sacrifices a creature, like something that happens habitually. Like it will happen over and over. Then we have stunned from Urabrask the Hidden. Context: his decree stunned the others. Kexjuai. Composition unknown, but it is conjugated as a verb that it is conjugated as we would expect. Skin from All Will Be One. We will flay the false skin. IPA. But anyway, apparently bite means false and taxaish means skin, I think. But no, actually the I in this case is again part of the conjugation. It's not part of the word. Anyway. Source from New Phyrexia Scene 2. Context: new sources of mana. Shoprab. Okay, remember way back in the beginning where I was like, I've seen something like this? It was Shoprab. Shoprab means new. Now, what was the word in which I saw this? And I wanted to remember it. I wanted to see, like, I've seen this before. Shoprab. If I find this, it's gonna be so satisfying. Shoprab. Shoprab means new in Phyrexian. Chionoft. Or maybe it wasn't at the beginning. Maybe I should have written it down, but it would have taken me more time. Double draw. Coming. No idea. The point is that Shoprab means new in Phyrexian. So it's Shoprab, and then source is I don't know how to say that. It's just like I can tell you is that I don't know what's happening after Choprap, but it is probably a compound word. But it's a good point. Why isn't this in plural? Yeah, it is all in singular, but it should be plural. Then we have splinter from New Phyrexia Scene 4. Context: whispers splinter the mind. And then we have Gitchpan egg. Gi is the third person marker or something, and this Chupaneg is a splinter. Fine. So, from Phyrexian scriptures, context: so it's perfection. The IPA is Giruken. Composition: Gi, third person marker, Ruken, C. Swamp from Phyrexian swamp. IPA, Hashkum or Kashkum, something like that. C from Phyrexian swamp lore is just Urukam. It's apparently like we see. So apparently, like Sheldred is talking about something that she and others are seeing about the resistance, something like that. Then vocabulary: C from Phyrexian swamp lore. We don't know, and why didn't I put the IPA for this one? This P and Ruken. So we will see, I think, and they will see. Anyway, vocabulary T. Testament. This is context: Jacquemot's testament. Federstein. Federstein. And then we have, and notice how this word for testament, Federstein, so the Jacquemot's testament in Phyrexian would be Federstein Ya'ach Mo'aid. And notice how Federstein and Mo'aid both have that I, because they are both being possessed by the father, or father of machines. No, forget it. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm confused. I'm tired, and and I guess don't try to decipher languages when you are tired. You get nothing. Just sleep, touch grass, do that sort of stuff. And then we have Torn from Jacquemot's testament. Until the end of Torn. I don't know how it is pronounced, but it's a compound word. We have Trample from Borinclex Monstrous Rider. Context: Trample. Composition is the ability marker, and then we have that Kupfak. We don't know what that is. But Pan, that we know that Pan is broken or something related to broken, because we have that phrase about our voice calls out to the lost and the broken. So we know that trample is somehow related to the ability of breaking something. Then we have target from Sheldred, Whispering One. Context: return target creature. Aixut or Shaiksut, Saiksut, something like that. And then we have tapped from Urabrask the Hidden. Context: enter the battlefield tapped. I pine. Type from Borinclex Monstrous Voice of Hunger. Context: add 1 mana of any type. And then IPA is Mekaidine. Tap from Borinclex Voice of Hunger. Context: you tap a land for mana. Ma'an Ipum. Composition: Ma'an, and then this Ipum is tap. Then we have another instance of tap from Borinclex Voice of Hunger. Context: when an opponent taps a land for mana, and this time is Gima'an Ipem. With the Gi and everything. Composition is Gi, third person marker. Ma'an is mana. Ipem is tap. Like, looking at this, I realize how many things we have yet to learn. But I also have to remember how much we have learned, because at some point this was just gibberish, and we have managed to make so much sense of this. Then we have next on-tap step from Borinclex Voice of Hunger. Context: during its controllers. IPA. I'm not gonna read it. Composition: Gnar is next. Apparently, X is a position marker. Ipem tap. Köpenich step o Köpenich. Y luego Puxe. I don't know what's going on at the end of this word. I don't know. I don't know what. I don't know what that is. Then we have on tap from Warrington's Voice of Hunger. That land doesn't on tap. And then IPA is ye x IPM. And then, ye is third person marker, x is the opposition marker, and then IPM is tap. And next we have thus from Phyrexian scriptures. Thus the grand evolution began. And then is something like sots. Vocabulary. Ooh. Oh, we are so close. We are close. We are close. Then why do I have so many pages here? U is the last letter. We have upkeep from Sheldred Whispering One. Context at the beginning of your upkeep. IPA. Dlabskpvenuch. Composition. Dlabs. Upkeep. Kepionuch. Step. Notes. DL is a prefix for in. It could be a coincidence though. No, probably not. Well, who knows? Upkeep. Is that? Because probably not, but then I thought about it and it's like, upkeep from Sheldred Whispering One. Context. Each opponent's upkeep. And it's slightly different. One is Dlabskpvenuch. Oh, because it's a verb! Because it's a fucking verb! In the first one, it's talking about you upkeeping your things. And now it's talking about your opponent upkeeping their stuff. Now I get it. It's just it didn't cross my mind that this could be verbs being conjugated. But now that I think of it, it makes so much sense. Then vocabulary, V. And then we have vigilance from Elish Norn, Grand Cenobite, context vigilance. We have the ability marker, and then Punrukum, which means vigilance, or C. Oh yeah, it means C. But it has that P at the start. That pay in. So yeah, it's interesting that Rukum is to see, but then it has something else. So it's always keeps watch. Then we have voice from Borinklex, Voice of Hunger. IPA is Suchive. Then another instance of voice from All Will Be One, or voice calls out to the lost and the broken, and is Suchav. And then we have void from Phyrexian scriptures. Context from void evolved Phyrexian. I don't know how to say this word. Maybe one of these letters with the hell prefix is it means from. W. So close. W. Worlds from Elish Norn Grand Cenobite. Context. Whisper themselves. Gitaxians whisper themselves about other worlds. IPA. Sal, which means other, remember? Sal kethegd. Something like that. So it's literally other worlds. And we have Whisper from Elish Norn Grand Cenobite. The Gitaxians whisper. IPA is Yijet. Then we have World from Elish Norn Grand Cenobite. We must bring Phyrexian's magnificence. And so this is Phyrex kethegd. The perfect world. I'm pronouncing world as kethegd, but that's just my best guess. All of this here is my best guess. Whispering from Sheldred Whispering One. Context Whispering One. IPA Napfam Ijeet. So it's like the worker of whispers, the one that makes whispers, because Napfam is maker, Ijeet is whispers. Then we have world from All Will Be One, Scene 6. Context the false skin of this world. IPA is Gepethegd. Composition Ge not translated, and then Petheg is world. And then we have another instance of world from All Will Be One, Scene 7. Context reveal the face of a new Phyrexia. And then is Shoprap new. Shoprap Phyrexian. Shoprap Phyrexian. That's a new perfect world. But interestingly, world usually has this vowel, which is a circle, and it doesn't in this case. Next one is work from All Will Be One, Scene 8. Context, the great work has begun. Is Shuksa. I know, oh, well, apparently, I don't know if I misspelled this or if I didn't see the diacritic correctly, but now I see that this should be Shaha'at, and I have it as Shaksa'at. Anyway, Shaha'at Napfam is a great work. And then we have world from New Phyrexia Scene 1. Context, New Phyrexia. Shoprup Phyrex Kethect. Which is very similar to other instances we have seen in this same phrase, New Perfect World. But the difference is in the vowels. Here we have only Shoprup, we don't have Shoprap. Before we had that A. And we have a random T in the middle. I don't know, it's very similar to this other instance seen in the trailer of All Will Be One. But I don't know, but they have those key differences, and they might mean something, or they might be mistakes, we're not sure. And then we have work, from New Phyrexia Scene 1, context, the great work, Shahat Napfine, grand work. Shahat, great, Napfine work. Whispers, from New Phyrexia Scene 4, context, whispers splinter the mind. Icheet. That's, yeah, we have seen this before. Work, from Phyrexian Swamp Lore. Context, unknown, Napfine. Work, from Phyrexian Swamp Lore. Context, unknown, Napfine Chexiroshok. Napfam is work, X is opposition marker, and Reshok is, we don't know what that is. But whatever that is, they are talking about the opposite of that. Because that is the opposition marker before. And then we have work from Dark Discoveries. It's just this long ass word that I don't know what it means, but right in the middle of it there is Napfam, work. And so yeah. Finally we're in the Y. We have you from Jackmoth's Testament. Context, you might play. It appears in a ton of other cards. It is pronounced as ka. Oh, well, it could be you or it could be your, like as a possessive. I don't know. Notes, maybe it means we. Yeah, maybe it means we or our. Yeah, who knows. Then we have Jackmoth from Phyrexian Scriptures. We have context, great Jackmoth. IPA, Yaak Moth. Composition, Yaak Machine, Mo'oth Father. This is the only instance I think that doesn't have Mo'aith, because the other ones are Father of Machines, like his title, but this is his name. Finally, we have the untranslated ones. We have these two ones from Eleshnorn Grand Cenobite. Maybe they mean something like they exist, or like a tense marker, or something like that. Also from Eleshnorn, we have these Shahat Napit. Well, that I mentioned that one earlier, that Napit is very confusing. It's from Magnificence. It's from Magnificence. So yeah, Shahat Napit means magnificence, and we know that Shahat means greatness. But what does Napit mean? Then we have a new Phyrexian. Oh well. At first I was confused by this one, but then I realized that it was just Mirrodin, and they forgot to separate it from the tense marker. Another one we have is from Phyrexian Altar. The thing that appears at the top of the altar is Ushta, and I think it means altar, but I don't know. And then we have Jinkitaxias from Jinkitaxias Core Ogre. We have that Gooms from before that we saw also in Sorcery. And then we have from Phyrexian Scriptures, we have a word that is kind of like Usuta, similar to one section of the word permanent, but not similar enough. And then we have from Dark Discoveries, basically everything. I wrote down every word there. So yeah, that's it. That's every word we have ever seen in Phyrexian. And I read them all to you. I told you where they appear. I told you what they mean in case we know, or what we think, or like the weird things about them, and everything. I did it. And so yeah, if you are watching this, that means that you stayed until the end. I love you. I don't know why you stayed all this time watching me doing this weird thing, but I really appreciate you, and I want you to know that. And sorry for the dumb jokes. If I could make better jokes, believe me, I would, but I can't. And yet you stayed until the end. I don't know who are you or what's going on in your life, but I hope that you enjoy this, and and I hope to keep making content that you enjoy. Hopefully different from this. Hopefully things that are more engaging and fun and stuff like that. But I guess in the end, all I want to say is thanks for watching. No, for real, for real. This is thanks for watching, but there's so much implied in that phrase. As always, this video was brought to you by my Patreons, whether they want it or not. I guess if they don't want it, they can just leave my Patreon, but please don't leave my Patreon. Anyway, this video was brought to you by Otimotiosu, Mats Weig, Daniel H. Anyway, this video was brought to you by Otimotiosu, Mats Weig, Daniel H. McGillivray, Marlo Brown, Valerie Hyde, and David Saunders. Yeah, that was it. Okay, I'm gonna say it once more in case I forgot. Otimotiosu, Mats Weig, Daniel H. McGillivray, Marlo Brown, Valerie Hyde, and David Saunders. Thanks for watching and goodbye.